He had the career many dreamed of and the charm that made him a household name. Yet behind the warm smile and easy confidence of Drew Scott lay a series of struggles that nearly derailed everything he worked for. From devastating health scares to crushing financial setbacks and a deeply personal battle with infertility, his journey reveals a side of fame most people never see. Today, we're uncovering the story of Drew Scott, a man whose success came with more pain than anyone could have imagined. Early dreams, harsh realities. Drew Scott was born on April 28, 1978, in Vancouver, Canada, alongside his identical twin brother, Jonathan. From the very beginning, the boys were taught to dream big, but also to work hard. Their father, Jim Scott, once an actor and stuntman in Hollywood, encouraged creativity and reinvention, while their mother, Joanne, instilled discipline and a focus on education. It was a balanced upbringing that set the foundation for their ambition. At just 8 years old, Drew and Jonathan started making nylon hangers and selling them door to door in their neighborhood. That small venture taught them resilience and the thrill of building something of their own. But as Drew grew older, he had different ambitions. Tall and athletic, he dreamed of becoming a professional basketball player. For a time, that future looked possible, until injuries crushed those hopes. Forced to abandon the dream of sports, Drew turned his eyes toward entertainment. With his father's background in film and television, the industry had always fascinated him. He began pursuing acting, landing small roles on shows like Smallville and Breaker High, and even worked as a body double for Tom Welling. While these roles gave him experience, they were not enough to build a stable life. By his early 20s, Drew was juggling acting auditions with university studies at the University of Calgary, where he and Jonathan also started dabbling in real estate. They bought rundown houses, renovated them, and rented them out to other students, earning their first steady income. It was a sign of things to come. But at the time, Drew still clung tightly to his dream of acting. That pursuit would soon come at a devastating cost, leaving him with more debt than he ever imagined, and setting the stage for the hardships that followed: financial ruin and reinvention. As the 2000s progressed, Drew's pursuit of acting took him from Calgary to Vancouver, a city with a booming film industry. He enrolled in acting classes, networked endlessly, and did everything he could to get noticed. But the opportunities didn't come easily, and each audition seemed to lead to another rejection. To survive, Drew poured money into training, headshots, and living expenses, all while waiting for the breakthrough role that never arrived. Before long, he was buried under more than $100,000 in debt. For someone so ambitious and determined, it was a crushing blow. Meanwhile, Jonathan was facing his own disaster. Obsessed with magic and determined to become the next David Copperfield, he had invested everything he had into props, a custom-built trailer, and equipment. But a dishonest partner stole nearly all of it, leaving Jonathan with nothing. Devastated, he filed for bankruptcy, a decision he would later call the worst financial mistake of his life. The Scott twins, who would one day be worth millions, were both broke and struggling to find a way forward. It was in this darkness that their true resilience began to show. Instead of giving up, Drew and Jonathan returned to something that had always worked for them: real estate. With their knowledge from college ventures, they started flipping homes again. This time, they approached it with a seriousness born out of desperation. Drew even got his realtor's license, determined not to rely on others to handle the business side of their deals. Slowly, project by project, they dug themselves out of financial ruin. But this wasn't just about money. For Drew, it was about reclaiming his sense of purpose. Acting had left him with empty promises and crippling debt, but real estate gave him stability and a chance to dream again. By his late 20s, he had finally built a foundation strong enough to support another attempt at entertainment. What he didn't know was that this second chance would open the door to a level of fame he had never imagined, but also challenges that would test him even more deeply: fame, pressure, and the rise of Property Brothers. By the late 2000s, television networks were searching for fresh ideas in reality programming. Drew, now more confident in real estate, pitched himself for a project called My Dream Home, which was initially meant to pair him with a female co-host. But Drew knew there was only one person who could truly balance the concept: his brother Jonathan. With Drew handling the business and negotiation side, and Jonathan taking charge of construction and design, the formula came to life. In 2011, HGTV took a chance on the brothers and launched Property Brothers. The format was simple yet emotional. Families found fixer-uppers, Drew secured the purchase, and Jonathan transformed them into dream homes. The chemistry between the brothers was undeniable. Their banter, humor, and teamwork turned the show into more than a renovation program. It became a story of family, hope, and transformation. Viewers connected not just with the homes, but with the brothers themselves. The success was immediate. Within a few seasons, Property Brothers was airing in over 150 countries. Spin-offs like Brother vs. Brother and Property Brothers Forever Home soon followed, and eventually Celebrity IOU, which paired them with stars like Brad Pitt and Melissa McCarthy. By 2019, Drew and Jonathan weren't just TV personalities. They were empire builders with their own production company, Scott Brothers Entertainment, and a growing lifestyle brand. But success came at a heavy cost. Filming multiple shows meant constant travel, long hours, and relentless deadlines. They were juggling roles as hosts, producers, and businessmen. For Drew, the pressure became suffocating. Fans began to notice he was appearing less frequently, sparking whispers that something was wrong. On screen, he smiled and charmed, but behind the scenes, his health was deteriorating. No one knew it yet, but Drew was about to face one of the darkest and most frightening chapters of his life. The health crisis that nearly ended it all. By 2019, Drew Scott seemed to be living the dream. Property Brothers was thriving, the spin-offs were pulling in huge audiences, and HGTV was heavily invested in the Scott brand. Yet behind the polished exterior, Drew was quietly fighting a battle that very few people knew about. For more than a year, he struggled with an illness that doctors could not explain. It began with constant fatigue, the kind that never went away, no matter how much he rested. Soon after, his digestive system became unpredictable, leaving him in pain and unable to handle long days on set. Even small amounts of physical exertion left him drained. Heat made his body react violently. Just walking outside on a warm day could send him spiraling into exhaustion. Exercise, once a part of his daily routine, became impossible. For a man known for his energy and charisma, it was terrifying to feel his body failing him. Desperate for answers, Drew sought help from multiple doctors. Each appointment brought a new round of tests, but no real clarity. Some suggested autoimmune issues, others suspected chronic infections, but nothing explained the full scope of his symptoms. Meanwhile, filming had to continue, and Jonathan often carried more of the show's weight while Drew tried to push through. The uncertainty was crushing, not just for him, but for his family who watched helplessly. Finally, after months of searching, Drew received an answer: mercury poisoning combined with chronic fatigue syndrome. The diagnosis was both frightening and relieving. Left untreated, it could have been fatal. At the same time, it gave him a clear direction for treatment. He stepped back from filming to focus on recovery, undergoing medical therapies to flush the toxins from his body, and adopting a slower, more careful lifestyle. The journey back to health was long, and at times he feared he might never return to the life he once had. But Drew refused to let the illness define him. He began sharing his struggle with fans, posting updates on social media, and speaking candidly about the importance of rest, self-care, and not ignoring the warning signs of burnout. In doing so, he not only fought for his own health, but also inspired countless viewers who were facing their own invisible battles. Love, infertility, and the fight to build a family. While Drew was rebuilding his health, another battle was unfolding in his personal life. He had found love with Linda Phan, a creative and ambitious woman he met in Los Angeles. Their relationship was steady and full of mutual respect, and after 8 years together, they married in a beautiful ceremony in Italy in 2018. For Drew, who had spent so much of his life focused on work and survival, it was a rare moment of joy and peace. From the beginning, Drew and Linda dreamed of becoming parents. When they designed their home in Los Angeles in 2017, they even planned for nurseries, imagining little ones running through the hallways. But the path to parenthood turned out to be far more difficult than they could have imagined. Month after month, their attempts to conceive ended in disappointment. As the years passed, Drew admitted that the process left them feeling lost and overwhelmed. Part of the challenge was Linda's struggle with Graves' disease, an autoimmune condition that affects the thyroid. It complicated their chances of conceiving naturally, forcing them to turn to medical intervention. They tried intrauterine insemination, IUI, and eventually IVF, enduring endless doctor visits, tests, and emotional highs and lows. For Drew, who was already recovering from his own health issues, watching his wife undergo painful procedures and uncertainty was heartbreaking. The process took years, testing their patience and resilience. Still, they refused to give up. Finally, in late 2021, Drew and Linda announced that they were expecting their first child. In May 2022, their son, Parker James Scott, was born. The moment changed everything. Drew wrote on Instagram, "Our lives are forever changed. Welcome to the world, Parker James." Just 2 years later, in 2024, they welcomed a daughter, Piper Ray, completing the family they had dreamed of for so long. For Drew, fatherhood became the most profound chapter of his life. After years of fear that his illness or infertility would rob him of this joy, he finally had the family he and Linda had fought so hard to build. It was proof that even in the face of tragedy and struggle, perseverance could still create moments of pure happiness. But as Drew embraced fatherhood, life continued to remind the Scott family of the fragility of happiness. Loss, lawsuits, and the price of fame. By the mid-2020s, Drew Scott and his brother Jonathan had become global icons. Their HGTV empire was valued in the millions. Their shows aired in more than 150 countries, and their combined net worth was estimated at over $200 million. To the outside world, it seemed as if nothing could shake the Scott brothers' success. But fame always comes with a price, and behind the polished television image were cracks that few fans ever saw. In 2021, a Las Vegas couple, Paul and Mindy King, filed a lawsuit against Cineflix, the production company behind Property Brothers, as well as contractors who worked on their home. They claimed their $200,000 renovation had left them with leaking sewage, broken plumbing, mold, and unsafe gas lines. Though Drew and Jonathan weren't personally named in the original suit, the headlines linked them to the controversy. For two men who had built their brand on trust and transformation, the allegations were a painful reminder of how quickly public opinion could shift. At the same time, Drew watched his twins struggle with private heartbreak. Jonathan had gone through a devastating divorce years earlier and later suffered the deaths of both of his beloved dogs, Stewie in 2022 and Gracie in 2024. For Jonathan, those losses were crushing, and Drew stood by him the way Jonathan had once supported him during his illness. The brothers had always leaned on each other, and this chapter showed again how intertwined their lives truly were. Tragedy also struck in the wider circle of people they admired. In 2022, Drew and Jonathan filmed with actor Leslie Jordan for an episode of Celebrity IOU. Just weeks later, Jordan died unexpectedly, leaving the brothers shaken. Jonathan admitted that hearing the news while on set didn't feel real, and Drew described him as someone with a big heart who touched everyone he met. Through lawsuits, personal grief, and health scares, Drew Scott realized that fame did not shield anyone from hardship. The glossy homes and smiling reveals on HGTV hid years of debt, illness, heartbreak, and loss. Yet, despite it all, Drew continued to rise each morning to face the cameras. Not because life was perfect, but because he had endured enough pain to know that perseverance was the only way forward. Drew Scott's journey is one of triumph shadowed by tragedy. From crushing debt and illness to the heartbreak of infertility and the pressures of fame, he has faced battles that could have broken him. Yet, through resilience, love, and family, Drew found a way to endure, and even to inspire others by showing that success often comes at a cost no one sees on television. What do you think about Drew's incredible story? Does it surprise you to learn how much he has endured behind the spotlight? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories of the stars you thought you knew.